Hello, buddy. All right, welcome to the Mikestand. Today is, of course, Tuesday, August the 26th, 2025. Of course, we're going to give, sorry, I was a little late. I was just getting caught up on the story I'm going to do tonight. I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment here. Um, Friendly reminder to everybody, of course, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your anything we talk about tonight grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'm sure if you're paying attention, you'll probably will have some comments or questions. Once I tell you what we're going to be primarily covering. Um, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Um, Let me see now. Um, all right. So, anyways, I welcome both my YouTube and my Rumble viewers. As I said, if you guys can, one last friendly reminder before I'll talk about what's on tap for tonight. If you can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. With that being said, why don't we go ahead and jump right into the show tonight? Because basically, we do have something to talk about. Now, normally I don't do. Usually, usually reserve the wrestling related stories to the wrestling wrap up. But one I'm going to probably be talking about here in a moment, and it will be the one. It will be the one that we will focus on tonight. Kind of transcends wrestling as a whole, due in part to some of the bigger names involved in the situation. Not just the immediate people involved in the situation, but also some of how some of these have extended. Now, my now so the main story we're going to talk about tonight, of course, is the whole situation with Roger Jackson and the Knox Pro Wrestling event in California. We're going to talk about that. We're going to get you all caught up on all the latest with that. A good piece of news for you guys who may want to know: Stu is apparently awake and conscious and currently wrestling. We'll talk, of course, about that. We kind of touched upon it yesterday. We'll kind of go over a little bit more everything that went down, and also more about the fallout as well. Um, After that, of course, we will have, of course, the regular wrestling wrap up. We'll get caught up on we'll get caught up on last night's Raw, as it's the go home Raw before this Sunday's Clash in Paris. We'll obviously look ahead. We'll look at some AEW news, look ahead to tonight's NXT, especially with that coming off of the Heatwave pay per view or PLE on yesterday as well. Um, let's see, actually from Sunday, and then we'll wrap things up, of course, with this day in each history. So, with that being said, why don't we go ahead and let's talk about it. I don't have an actual article to refer to, as it were, a printed article on the matter, but I have seen a number of different videos of people covering it, including, of course, on the from the wrestling side of it, you know, um, top 10 wrestling, cultaholic wrestling. Um, let's see, WrestleMania, as well as some mainstream coverage from, of course, the Quartering and Anthony Bryan Logan as well. So So let's talk about this. So just to kind of get everybody caught up. First off, let's get some basic information out of the way. Um, First off, one of the things we're going to talk about, um, for those of you who are not in the know of some of the terminology used here, well, there are going to be two key words here we're going to be focusing in on as we're talking about this. Two two pieces of wrestling lingo that are going to be very important for you to understand as we move forward here as we talk about this. Um, Work and shoot. Sure, some of you've heard these terms before. If you've attended some at least some wrestling events, you probably heard the terms before. Maybe not fully understood what they meant. So a work is when it's part of the angle or part of the story. Okay, a work is basically what's in the script for a professional wrestling, match, event, show, what have you. You know, a shoot is basically when it's real, and this is of course this is you know at least thus early on they were painting this as a work that just devolved into a shoot, and there's been some evidence that has said that that may not be totally accurate, as we're going to go over all that. Um, this event happened in Los Angeles, Southern California, um, at a Knox Pro wrestling event. Knox Pro is owned by WWE legend Rikishi, and of course, up until yesterday, was a part of the WWE's ID program and helping to develop um, independent promotions. Um, So, with all that being said, with some of the basic and of course the parties involved, of course, are Raja Jackson, the son of Rampage Jackson. Raja, of course, also an MMA fighter himself. Rampage Jackson, everybody probably knows the Quentin Rampage Jackson. In case you don't, he's a former UFC fighter, MMA fighter. Raja and Rampage currently, well, again, up until yesterday, in Raja's case, um, we're doing IRL streams on a platform called Kick, and this is where a lot of the footage that we've seen the last few days here is coming to us from. Um, so you have Psycho Stu, who is a former Army veteran who's now a current professional wrestler. It's been said that he's used pro wrestling. He loves pro wrestling. He's somebody who really into it. It's said that he was using pro wrestling to help him deal with his PTSD, his post traumatic stress disorder. Let's see. AJ. Some other wrestlers who are involved in this story include AJ Mana, Douglas Mallow, I believe is the guy's name. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right or heard that right. As they've had some interesting statements on the matter. So now that we kind of got all the major players involved here, here's what kind of apparently went down. So initially, I guess Raja was invited to the event by AJ Mana, who is a pro, not just a pro wrestler, but also a MMA fighter. In which he was the one who invited Raja to the show. Now, apparently, what happened, I guess, prior to the show, Raja was walking through the I guess the quote unquote backstage area, interacting with some of the wrestlers and stuff like that. Psycho Stu, unaware that he was not a worker or was working an angle, decided to hit Raja over the head with what they call the gimmicked beer can, basically. Um, Raja apparently initially did not take too kindly to that. Um, there's some initial beef, but then and I've seen the video a few times here. So after that happened, you could hear some of the other guys saying, "Hey, he's not a worker. He's not a worker." And you did actually, and it did seem like they did. Apparently, it was, at least it seemed like at that point, that they were able to, as some people would call it, squash the situation, because you know, um, you know, um, Psycho Stu had apologized to him, said, "Look, I'm sorry, I didn't know you weren't actually working. I thought you were, my bad. And apparently, anyways, and you could see some of the other wrestlers who were there at the time were like, kind of getting in between them, making sure nothing happened. And then I guess one of the promoters, one of the higher ups was there. And they basically said that, oh yeah, we'll work this into an angle later where Raja would go into the ring and get his payback, as it were, or as in wrestling lingo, he'll get his receipt. He'll get a chance to. Now the idea was, of course, that he would just get the one hit, and then they would try to pull him apart, like you basically see in most wrestling shows when that's when people run in and get involved. That was apparently the plan, or at least what they wanted you to believe the plan was. But Raja, I guess, was not having it. Now at the time they did seem to make amends, but it was apparently all for naught, as it's been since revealed that throughout I guess the whole time, from the time that happened to what eventually happened, Raja was just sitting there at ringside interacting with his chat. Now Raja's a 25-year-old young man, so a little, and apparently he's got some anger issues, and some of his, I guess, some of his fans, I guess, or some of the people in his chat on his live stream were kind of egging him. I mean, there were people all around egging him on. There were people in his chat. There was also a video that came out, with AJ Mana, where he was suggesting, he could get his, he could get his, receipt. And if he had to, he'd go in there and pull him off and all that, which didn't happen. Let's see. And then you see, and then basically, so you had AJ Mana apparently egging him on. You had his chat egging him on. Even his dad, Rampage Jackson, apparently egged him on. Not really thinking that his son was really gonna go as far as he did, as he was basically saying things like basically saying things that would basically upset his son. Like, yeah, you're sitting there hugging with a bunch of other guys. What are you? Are you a man or what? It's like that kind of thing. Kind of very, but basically he was being egged on. Some people have been very critical of AJ Mana, in that, because I know that Top 10 Wrestling, they were very critical of Mana's quote unquote explanation on his Twitter feed, because they felt like, well, you don't use insider terms with non-wrestlers. That's the thing. Because since Mana used the term, well, yeah, you can get your receipt. You know what a receipt is, right? because and then it was revealed, through some other videos and sources that from the time, basically the time from the time where the initial incident happened to the time that Raja had gone in the ring to go after Stu, as we talked about, been egged on. But he's also, there's some comments on there that do indicate premeditations. He talked about how he was going, he was going to go in there and he was just going to keep beating on him. He basically pretty much admitted that he was going to, even at, I think one quote was, "Yeah, I always dreamed of bleeping up a wrestler," and I bleeped it out, of course. Yeah, they think this is a clown show, but so apparently he wasn't taking it as just part of the story, apparently, though, and nobody really took that. And then of course, once the fateful time came, he did jump in the ring. Basically, did a double leg, basically in wrestling parlance, it would be considered a double leg takedown spine buster type move. And he slammed him hard to where he basically knocked him out. Stu's head bounced off the mat and pretty much, he was knocked out. And then Raja, just with those lefts, just started pummeling him. And I think it really just devolved real. It took people a while to get in there, and I think what they said was Doug Mallow was the first one to realize, oh God, this guy's actually punching him for real. And you can see Doug Mallow was the one who pulled him off of Stu. Stu was like, basically, he was choking on his own blood, choking on his teeth. As you just saw a number of the wrestlers just getting in there. Eventually, they did throw him out. You could see, also there was some scenes afterwards where even his camera guy was telling him, "Hey, look, Raja, you got to listen to me now. We got to get out of here." The police are investigating the situation. Into what all happened. Whether it was a work that just got out of hand, or there were just miscommunication. It should not have gotten to this point. Really shouldn't have. But there are a lot of people calling for Raja to be basically put into jail for this. Considering that we have on tape that he didn't take this as just part of the show. He didn't take this as just part of the show. He went in there with willful intent to do harm, and he probably he deserves a fair trial, yes, but he deserves to have to answer for his behavior. Had some people coming out, like Mark Henry, like his dad, like Raja's dad, Rampage Jackson, like actually, like RVD come out in defense of Raja's action, but this just should never have gotten to that point. Now, some of the points they make are true to a point. Yes, in the old days, in the territory days, if you ended up breaking kayfabe, if you went out, got into a fight, you got beat up, and you ended up, and that ended up, breaking kayfabe, you probably would have got fired. Now, that's still no excuse for what happened here. Okay. but at least that part's accurate, but there was but even in this situation, I know some people may be trying to blame Stu, but Stu did apologize. Okay, it would have been one thing if he did that and then Raja got his receipt right then and there. Stu hit him with the can, and then Raja punched him right back. Okay, then people could argue, even though some people would argue it might have been a stretch. That could be considered okay self-defense if he reacted right away. But he didn't. He did not react right away. He made it seem like to everybody that everything was cool, and then as time went on, he plotted how he was going. He pretty much plotted how he was going to try to really injure this guy. He was what they call in the business, what they call taking liberty. He basically was going to take liberties with this guy. So now another thing that's come out, and Doug Mallow, I believe, is the guy who revealed this. But apparently, some of the higher ups at Nox Pro have basically told their talent, not to. Apparently, they're telling them not to cooperate with police. If police or the attorney, the attorneys, come to them to talk to them. They basically told them, do not talk to them directly. Refer them to us. There are some people who are saying that maybe Nox Pro is trying to cover this up or trying to sweep it under the rug, as it were. And it's just because of the people involved. This is not going to get swept under the rug. I'm sorry, Nox Pro, but this is not going to get swept under the rug. Okay. This went above and beyond what should have happened. This, I mean, there may have been contributing factors to why, Raja reacted this way, but still, there's no excuse for it. He ultimately did know right from wrong. Now, granted, and maybe, some of the blame can be put on some of the, on like, I don't think a whole lot of blame should be, because AJ Mana basically said that he was doing it in character, but even in a promo, as the guys on Top 10 Wrestling pointing out, even in a promo, you wouldn't use terminology, you wouldn't use insider terminology in a promo. Okay. Especially to somebody who doesn't know the business, right? I mean, it's also kind of hard to believe that, because he was speaking at least loud enough to where people, maybe about a couple seats around him in each direction, would have probably been hearing some of this. I'm surprised they didn't say something to, they didn't say something to, now, I know a lot of the fans would have been paying attention to what's going on in the ring and not to what somebody was talking about, but he was talking pretty loud enough to where I think some people would have heard, wait, what's that? What's this guy planning? Yeah, maybe I should let some people know that what's going on here, But some of the stuff that's come out of it because of that, of course, WWE has responded by, hey, Bone, I'm talking about the Raja Jackson situation that happened over the weekend. Don't know if you heard about all that or not, but yeah. Um, all right. So, anyways, back to that situation though. So WWE has dropped Knox Pro from their ID program, even though they were not directly involved in the situation. Of course, they don't want to. They basically, despite the fact that some of their former talent have come out in support of Raja here, notably Mark Henry and Rob Van Dam. They really don't want to get caught up in this, and they know it. Um, you know, let me see. Kick, the platform that was providing the services for Raja's live streaming, have banned him for this, since basically a lot of this was caught on his stream and on video there. We've already mentioned that the police are investigating this. Psycho Stu is awake now and is resting comfortably. There's a GoFundMe that was started for him, believed by his wife, and Mr. Beast was also. We've heard Mr. Beast, as well as Chris Jericho made some pretty big donations to it, to basically cover his medical expenses, his living expenses while he recovers. And of course, he's not going to be, after the beating he basically took there, he's not going to be able to probably work for a while, especially since I guess they said he suffers from PTSD. This probably can't be helping that aspect either. But, and I know one of the things that I know that that Top 10 Wrestling talked about was how independent wrestling is basically for the most part, it's the promotions that are not necessarily directly controlled by the national promotions. Now, granted, even though WWE has an ID program, the independents still basically run their own promotions. And even though WWE has since dropped Knox Pro from Knox Pro, here's the other aspect too. Knox Pro is run by, of course, Rikishi and one of his other relatives. I believe it was Reno and Hanoi. So, and there have been some people who mentioned, saying that Roman and that like Roman Reigns, some of the Inoue family are supposedly backing the promotion up on this. Don't know if that's really true or not. My guess is they're probably just trying to stay out of it. And of course, this doesn't help Rikishi much, because Rikishi's had some. Rikishi and the WWE of late have had some issues, as Rikishi's been very critical of WWE with how they booked his sons. But that's pretty much the story for another day. So the updated situation is this: police are investigating the situation. Should find out within a few days here of how that's all going to proceed. Psycho Stu is awake and resting, and everybody's hoping for a full and fast recovery. Just basically a situation that just got out of hand. A lot of people, and unfortunately, a lot of people contributed to this, in ways that they shouldn't have. I mean, egging this guy. I mean, not much could be done about the guys in the chat or his dad egging him on, but the people who were there, AJ. I don't think AJ should have really even encouraged this kid to try to get a receipt, because the kid obviously didn't understand the situation, and we can even see that he had full malicious intent, and full malicious intent. All right, so with that, that's where I'll end that story for now. If more comes of it, I'll let you guys know. So now we're going to, of course, move on to the wrestling wrap up. As we're going to look back, of course, to last night. We're going to talk a bit about what happened on last night's Monday Night Raw, as it was a go home Raw before this weekend's Clash in Paris. We'll also talk about, as it looks like the Clash in Paris card has been finalized with 6 matches. We'll take a look at that. We'll look ahead to tonight, at tonight's NXT, as well as at least get you caught up on some AEW news. So with that being said, let me go over first. Let's take a look back at last night's Monday Night Raw. So last night's Monday Night Raw, or yesterday's Monday Night Raw, which came from the BP Pulse Live in Birmingham, West Midlands, England, UK, with Michael Cole and Corey Graves on commentary on Netflix. The opening, let's see, there was an opening segment in which kind of a preview of their upcoming match at Clash in Paris, where Roman Reigns confronted Bronson Reed. Bronson Reed once again tried to take Roman Reigns' sneakers, and this time was not successful. But for the further build up there to that all going on. The opening match saw Dragon Lee defeat JD McDonough with Finn Balor in the corner. Finn Balor in his corner. So then in the next match, Kofi Kingston with Grayson Waller and Xavier Woods in his corner defeated Penta. As Grayson Waller would distract the referee, giving Kofi the chance to deliver Trouble in Paradise to Penta to get the pinfall. In a women's match, Rhea Ripley defeated Roxanne Perez, who had Raquel Rodriguez in her corner. After the match, of course, Raquel and Roxanne tried to double team Rhea Ripley, only for Rhea to be saved by Io Sky. Early in the night, they had talked and had basically said they were going to go their own ways. But I guess Io was now, of course, now the team is being known as Rio, RHIYO. So we got that. And then in the next match, AJ Styles defeated Finn Balor. Actually, that was a match that was set up earlier in the evening, as I believe Dominic Mysterio was actually trying to interfere in the JD McDonough match when he went, and that's how that all happened. And then the main event saw Braun Breaker defeat LA Knight with, of course, the help of Seth Rollins, which led to a post-match confrontation between the Vision of Rollins and Braun Breaker and LA Knight, CM Punk, and Jey Uso, as as Rollins and Breaker were looking to try to take LA Knight out of their upcoming 4-way match at Clash in Paris. Jey Uso came out to try to help LA Knight, and then CM Punk eventually came out, and it led to kind of a little 3-way tiff between the three of them. Now it is said that and we'll go ahead and take a look at this real quick. So it is said that the card is set for Clash in Paris. So we'll go over that real quick to tell you what's going to be happening this Sunday at in England. Where? So let's see. Oh yeah, so this Sunday from Paris, France, in WWE's Clash in Paris. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, 5 matches. They have 5 matches on here, but they're saying that there's going to probably be a 6th. So, so for the WWE Women's Intercontinental title, Becky Lynch will be defending the title against WWE legend Nikki Bella. Roman Reigns will be taking on Bronson Reed in a singles match. John Cena will be taking on Logan Paul. Sheamus will be taking on Rusev in a good old-fashioned Donnybrook match. And the fatal 4-way match for the WWE World Heavyweight title, Seth Rollins will be defending against CM Punk, LA Knight, and Jey Uso. So, now they were saying 6. So I think they might be planning on adding one more match, probably from the SmackDown brand, I'm guessing, as most of the matches here are all from Raw. So the only SmackDown match we have thus far is John Cena versus Logan Paul. I guess we're still waiting to hear how they're going to resolve the whole women. Well, they have, of course, stripped Naomi of the women's world title, but we're still waiting to hear on how, because Stephanie McMahon still has her title, or should have had her title shot. That match had to be canceled because of the situation. Now, to look ahead to tonight's NXT, coming off of course, the Heat Wave event that was held in Lowell, Massachusetts. Coming from the Performance Center in Orlando, Florida, with Booker T, Corey Graves, and Vic Joseph on commentary. Blake Monroe is set to take on Kalani Jordan in a blindfold match. Former Heritage Cup champion Lexis King will be taking on Miles Bourne. In a 6-woman tag team match, they'll have Lola Vice, Sol Ruca, and Zarya. Sol Ruca, of course, currently the current women's speed champion, as well as the current women's NXT Women's North American champion. We're taking on Fatal Influence of course, NXT Women's Champion JC Jane. She's no longer a double champion, as she, of course, lost the TNA Women's Knockout Champion on Sunday, along with Fallon Henley and Jasmine Nix. And then the culling in a women, looks like a women's tag match, the culling duo of Izzy Dame and Tatum Paxley. We're taking on Ren Sinclair and a mystery partner. I do need to step away from the computer for a moment. I will be right back. But I will put on some music for you guys to entertain you. Again, as always, if you guys step out by like, share the picture, you can get some more. And with people to engage us, we appreciate awesome. Feel free to comment and report what you like for. I'll put an answer for you, but I will. And I'll be right back. All right, sorry about that. I'm back now. So let's see. Anything new there? Nope. There's nothing new there either. All right. So again, to both my YouTube and my Rumble followers, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the screen, see if we get some more friendly people to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, another piece of news, one last piece of wrestling news before we move on to this day in each history. So it looks like Will Ospreay is going to be out of action for a little while, as some WWE stars have basically sent him well wishes. Um, and of course, he's going in for some neck surgery. He was basically written off television after a post match attack at Forbidden Door, in which he was of course um, in which they were involved. He was involved in a 10-man lights out steel cage match involving, of course, himself, Hiroshi Tanahashi, Darby Allin, and the Golden Lovers of Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi versus the Death Riders duo of Claudio Castagnoli and John Moxley, Gabe Kidd, New Japan's Gabe Kidd, and the Young Bucks of Matt and Nick Jackson. So that's all I got for the wrestling wrap up then. Quite a bit of wrestling news tonight, I know, but sometimes that happens. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and move on to this day in each history. So let me see. Let me just remind myself. Let's see. 2015, 1975. '75. '75, 2015. Let's see. 2000 and 2005. All right. So first off, we're going to head back to on this date in 1975. On this date in 1975, the Blackjack Mulligan, Blackjack Lanza, defeated Dominic DeNucci and Pat Barrett to become the new WWF Tag Team Champions, Philadelphia. So on this date, 50 years ago today, the Blackjack Lanza and Blackjack Mulligan defeated Pat Barrett and Dominic DeNucci to become the new WWF Tag Team Champions. Now moving ahead to the year 2000. Moving ahead to the year 2000 now. On this date, 25 years ago, legend in animation Joe Ruby passed away at the age of 87. Joseph Clemens Ruby was an American animator, writer, television producer, and music editor. He is best known as a co-creator of the animated Scooby-Doo franchise. Together with Ken Spears in 1977, they co-founded the television animation production company Ruby Spears. Ruby would work with Spears and would co-create several other shows, including Fang Face, Dynamite, Dog Wonder, and Jabberjaw, among others. They started off with, of course, Hanna-Barbera. Of course, Ruby Spears also gave us the Centurions, Thunder the Barbarian, and they also had a hand in helping to produce the '80s Alvin and the Chipmunks series. So on this date, I'm sorry, not 2000. That was 2020. That was actually only 5 years. I'm sorry, that was only 5 years ago. I misread that because I was in a hurry. So 5 years ago in 2020. So we kind of went a little out of order here, but that's okay. I goofed there. It happens. Um, Moving on to 2005, moving back to 2005, which was 20 years ago on this date, 20 years ago, back in 2005. The fourth and final episode of Picture Magic and Internet Entertainment's W Wish Omaki special was released on this date back in 2005, so 20 years ago today. The fourth and final episode of the W Wish Omaki, which was a special from Picture Magic and Internet Entertainment, is released on this date back in 2005. And finally, even though we did this a little out of order, finally moving on to 2015, on this date in the year 2015, on this date in the year 2015, the 135th issue of Alter Ego from Tomorrow's went on sale in comic shops on this date back in 2015. It sold for $8.95, was 80 pages. All right, so with that, I thank everybody for being here. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. We'll be back here with more Niche News tomorrow. Of course, this Sunday I'll be joined by Rick Piper as we will be looking. At comics went on sale in June of 1940 from Fiction House. We'll actually be focusing in on Wings comic number 1, based on mostly a bunch of aviation stories. So with that, I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.